Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Visto Show. It is Friday, December the 11th. Another episode here, episode 2 actually of the Visto Show, and I'm very happy to be joined by none other than good friend and colleague, Junaid Maqbool, International Student Recruitment Specialist. Junaid, thanks very much for coming on the show today.
Always a pleasure, Josh. Thank you so much for having me. Great to be with you today.
Awesome. So, what we're going to do really quickly today, first, super brief update that I will give on immigration. I'm going to segue that into a focus for today on international students and study permits. We're going to have an in-depth discussion with Junaid about what he's seeing on the ground, what to expect from colleges or universities, what international students can do or kind of think of to get them through the next year or so. And then, of course, we'll do a live Q&A, or we'll just take your questions live as they come in. So feel free, whether you're watching on YouTube, on Facebook, throw your comments or questions in the chat, and we'll do our best to answer as many of them as possible. So really quickly, just from the last week, we did have a big express entry draw a couple days ago. For the second draw in a row, Immigration Canada invited 5,000 people to apply. That's a big number. That's actually tied for the biggest draw ever. So the last 3 draws, have been record-setting numbers of invites, and the score requirement, again, for the second week in a row, 469. Really good sign, I think, if you're interested in coming to Canada from, whether you need PR from inside of the country or whether you're looking for PR from outside of the country, the fact that they're inviting large numbers of people to apply indicates that, number one, they're committed to inviting large number of immigrants, and number two, that hopefully the score will slowly continue to come down as they continue to invite a lot of people. So that's pretty much the biggest news from the last week in terms of PR. Let's talk about international students. There has not been a big change in terms of the legal requirements or the immigration side, we'll call it, in the last week or two. But the biggest change has been that since October the 20th, international students can now travel to Canada if their school is on a list of approved schools with COVID readiness plans. Junaid, can you talk to us a little bit about this list, how it's evolved since October, and how it looks right now?
The list has evolved a lot. I remember when it was launched on 20th of October, Ontario only had 27 entries, so it was quite a small list. But since then, they've had 2 iterations, and the numbers have ballooned up. Even in Ontario, the number entries have gone closer to 100, or even closer to 100. In total, there are more than 700 entries in that list right now. The last update was December 3rd, and I think another update is expected on the 15th of December. I know from the market that a lot of institutions are scrambling to get their COVID readiness plans approved by the government. A lot of them have already submitted. I think there's such a huge backlog that it's taking some time for the government to approve them. So the next iteration would be sizable as well, and the numbers will keep increasing.
Right. Just to put this into perspective, Junaid, do you happen to know how many schools there are in total? 700 sounds like a huge number, but I personally have no idea how many Canadian colleges and universities there are anyways.
I wouldn't know the total number, and when I say 700 entries, it's one of those things where certain institutions have multiple campuses and they're different DLI numbers. So one institution may have 2 entries in that list. I think, in terms of total, I would easily say, easily 900, 1,000, more than 1,000 institutions easily. Right. There's so many number of universities, colleges, and Canada's a huge country, right? 10 provinces, 3 territories, so there is a huge number.
Right. But it does seem like a good sign that a large percentage of them are already on the list, which is,
absolutely,
of course, a good thing. And the other thing I'll quickly mention is to travel to Canada, so you will still need your study permit approval, and your school has to be on that list. So, Junaid, what should students do, and what are you seeing and hearing kind of on the ground right now when it comes to colleges and universities? You're saying many of them are scrambling, or many of them have scrambled to get onto the list. The process of actually applying to Canadian colleges and universities, can you talk a little bit about that? How is COVID affecting that process? Is it making things more difficult? Is it not? Has it changed the document requirements, stuff like that? Anything along those lines would be super helpful.
Absolutely. I think one of the things that COVID has done is just reinforced to Canadian authorities and institutions how important international students are to the economy, and also to international students around the world of how welcoming Canada is. I mean, I've looked across, I mean, if you look across the countries, I think Canada really stands out in terms of the level of support offered to international students. Even now, institutions are offering all kinds of discounts. There are there's a lot of flexibility that they're offering. I was just going through the documentation requirements of an institution recently, and they have actually they've started accepting IELTS scores now, the kind of scores they weren't accepting in the past.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of flexibility that is being offered. They want international students to come. There's a lot of support available. So if you're, I think I understand there's a pandemic going on, but I think it is a really good time to be thinking of Canada to study in Canada.
Right. So do you think overall that the generally what it sounds like, and maybe this is a generalization, but are are schools simply being a little bit more lenient with their requirements for programs?
Yeah, I think they're showing flexibility. You still need to meet minimum requirements, so
Right.
they still wouldn't accept any application. You still need to meet minimum requirements, but they're offering the kind of flexibility that they haven't offered in the past. So if your IELTS score is a little here and there, now you stand a chance where earlier perhaps they wouldn't even talk to you.
Got it. That's good to know. So, what is a good first step, Junaid? If I'm a prospective international student, I'm living anywhere outside of Canada, I'm thinking about coming into the country. What are some of the first steps that you recommend? Right? Do you look right into schools? Do you need to narrow down a program right away? What are steps 1 and 2 and 3?
I think it's really to think big picture. Think of what it is that you want to do, actually. I mean, a lot of people start with that, hey, I want to settle in Canada, and that's a great start. But I think what really helps is to think big picture and look at the kind of program that you want to go for. And you can go for a program based on your prior qualifications. So if you studied IT, you have a bachelor's in IT, you want to do a master in IT, there is continuation that makes sense. If you had studied in a different discipline and you worked in a different discipline, then you can choose. You can certainly go, you can change your fields if you have some sort of background in those fields. So I think it's really think big picture first. Once you have that in mind, you don't even have to have a specific program nailed down, just big picture. So if it's computing science, think of computing science and then start looking at program institution. And that's where Josh, you and I are able to help students as well, where we talk to them about big picture, what it is that they want to do, narrow down the program for them, then go for different institutions, understand the requirements, give yourself time, give yourself plenty of time. You should easily give yourself 8 to 10 months of time before before your preferred session, before your preferred admission session.
Absolutely. And so, absolutely. And what we'll do is, if you are serious about coming to Canada, we will put a link to a service that you can take advantage of to work directly with Junaid, actually, to start finding and applying to the right colleges and universities. Junaid, what about with COVID specifically affecting how classes are run in Canada? Are a lot of them online? Are a lot of them in person? Are a lot of them hybrid? What can students expect, especially those that might be already approved, might be thinking of traveling soon? What are you seeing there?
Right. So a lot of
That might
institutions are taking it a
be
session by session. Right now, for January 2021, most of the institutions will be teaching in the hybrid format, where majority of their programs will be online. But some programs that require face-to-face interaction, hands-on activities, they will be face-to-face classes. And when those classes are undertaken, the institutions will follow social distancing guidelines. So
right.
it will be hybrid for right now. And let's see, I mean, there's some positive news on the vaccine, etc. So let's see how that goes into May session and September session. But for right now, January 2021 is hybrid. Even May, to be honest, I think May would most likely be hybrid as well. So let's see what happens in September.
Got it. Okay, that's really good to know. Awesome. When it comes to, let's talk money for a little bit, Junaid. Right?
Sure.
Obviously, a big concern,
Mm.
a big sticking point, a big piece of information that a lot of people want to know about. If we kind of speak pretty generally, because obviously this will depend on program, this will
Sure.
depend on et cetera, et cetera. Um, if I'm an international student, can you give me some very, general costs whether that be tuition, cost of living, just more general costs that I should probably budget for, or minimum expectations.
Absolutely. So if you're looking for undergraduate studies, I mean, there are a number of costs you should be aware of. The two main ones would be tuition fees and your cost of living. When it comes to tuition fee, again, it varies hugely depending on which institution you're going for, which program, which province. More technically, a program is more pricey. So, for example, medical tends to be quite pricey. But on average, an undergraduate degree, a bachelor's degree, if you're doing it from a college, it's anywhere from 8,000 to 16,000 Canadian dollars a year.
Right.
If you're doing it from a university, it goes up from, let's say, I would say on average, it will be around 29,000 a year. That's average, but the range tends to be, I think a business degree would be 21,000 Canadian dollars a year. If you're looking for a master's degree, range again goes anywhere from 7,000 to 22,000 Canadian dollars. Most of them would be in that 20 to 25,000 Canadian dollars range.
Right.
When it comes to cost of living, it again depends on the kind of life you're living, the kind of expenses, which province you're in. Toronto, Vancouver tends to be slightly pricey to live in. If you're in Alberta, for example, the cost of living would be slightly less. On average, you should budget annually around, I would say, anywhere from $10,000 to $14,000 a year.
Right.
But again, just it entirely depends on the kind of life you live. And you can control cost of living. You can't control tuition, but you can control your cost of living.
Right. So, I mean, those are big numbers, right? Are there any ways that we can kind of soften that blow, right? Can you talk a little bit about scholarships, bursaries, or any other kind of like strategies that you can recommend to make some of those numbers maybe work a little bit easier for people?
Absolutely. I mean, I think so. Most institutions, in fact, almost all the institutions that I know of, they offer some sort of financial aid and, scholarships, awards, bursaries, and the value ranges quite a lot. So it could be as low as $500 a session, could be 5,000. If it's a third-party sponsorship where an organization has decided to sponsor certain students under certain conditions, you may be able to get quite a decent financial aid.
Right.
But every institution has that, and it is mostly based on merit. So your prior marks, your prior qualification, your prior performance matters a lot. If you are an outstanding student, you can expect to receive a decent amount of financial aid. And obviously, if you're in financial need, there's a genuine financial need, institutions will look at your application favorably. You can't apply for financial aid before you're accepted into the program, so that's something to keep in mind. I think the first step is to apply, get your letter of acceptance. Every institution has a different process of how you apply for financial aid. So you go onto their website, just make sure you have all the information, apply for financial aid, and they will let you know how much can you expect on a semester-wise basis or on an annual basis.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. We get asked a lot about scholarships and stuff like that, so that order is of course really good to know. A couple more questions here, Junaid. One of which is, what do things look like moving forward? Right, 2020 has been a crazy year. We still don't know what the heck 2021 is going to look like. Can you look into the future for us a little bit, maybe even just 6 to 12 months? Like, what do you foresee? Is Canada still a good destination to come as an international student? Any recommendations for international students that are thinking of coming here? Any words of wisdom?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, I'll be careful in what I say, because I remember somebody asked me in 2015, where do you see your life in 5 years? And I'm sure I got the answer wrong.
Yeah,
most of us did, right?
Yeah.
So I'll be very careful. I don't want to tempt fate. If you look online, I haven't seen any memes of 2021 will be my year. Everybody is really scared. Nobody's talking about how 2021 will be, right? But I'm optimistic. I think the news around vaccine is really positive. The focus Canadian government has on supporting international students is, I think it's amazing. So I'm quite optimistic. I think I would imagine May 2021 will be similar to what's going on right now. September 2021 is a bit 60-40. I still think there will be some sort of hybrid teaching in September 2021. My personal opinion, and just my personal opinion, we will start seeing things perhaps be a little different in 2022, towards the end of 2021 and towards 2022. But it's anybody's guess exactly when things start to change. But they are
Right.
moving in positive direction with with the news on vaccine and etc.
Yeah, and I mean from a strictly kind of immigration
Yeah,
standpoint, things look really positive, right? They've been
absolutely, absolutely.
processing these applications the whole time. International students, the study permit is the first permit where Canada started removing the travel restriction
Yeah,
towards, right? New PR approvals actually still cannot travel into Canada, whereas new study permit holders can. So really
mm,
good sign. It also shows how important international students are to our economy, to our country, everything like that. So I actually think that the study permit is the best route into
yep,
Canada right now. Again, it depends on certain scenarios,
yeah.
but just my thoughts there. Awesome, super helpful, Junaid. And again, if anybody has any questions for myself or Junaid, feel free to throw them into the chat. Junaid, one or two last questions I have
Hey,
for you. Is there any piece of advice if someone's just looking to get started on their own, let's
right.
just say, what do you recommend they do and where should they go? Should they start looking up university websites? Like, what are the best ways to start looking into this process quite simply?
I mean, without trying to upsell ourselves, I would definitely recommend looking at Visto, because one thing that I really like about Visto, and I'm not just saying it because I'm on the show, it's just the amount of information you have collected from various resources and from your own knowledge. I think the content is awesome. Uh, One challenge with Googling how to study in Canada is that there's so much information that you don't know where to go, what to believe, and etc. I think the first step is to arm yourself with knowledge. Make sure you know exactly what you want to do, which program, and what is the process.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do not understand the process, feel free to ask Wisto. Feel free to get that information as a first step, and
Mm-hmm.
then make informed decisions on how you want to study in Canada.
Right.
Most institutions have some really, really, really useful sections on their website around how to apply. There's a lot of support available. I mean, most institutions, most colleges, most universities have a team of student advisors, support officers. They'll be happy to answer your questions. Obviously, the volume that they get of questions, they may not be able to give you personalized service. That's where we can help, but they will certainly be able to help.
Right.
Yeah,
Absolutely. And so if you are interested, of course, check out Visto.ai.
yeah,
We also have a new program called Visto Study where you can
yeah.
work directly with Junaid to find the right colleges and universities to apply to. We will throw that link in the description once the video is over. Junaid, that's it for me in terms of questions. Any last thoughts or words of wisdom to international students out there that are on the fence or kind of just feeling confused about how COVID is shifting, everything in such a weird way right now?
Absolutely. I mean, I think I speak to people on a regular basis, and a lot of them give me a feedback that they will just wait it out. They'll just wait for all of this to be over and then, reassess and then restart. And that's one strategy. And obviously, if there's a lot of risk involved for you, absolutely you can take that strategy. But I think if you're on the fence, but you're serious about studying in Canada at some point, I think what's going on shouldn't discourage you. In fact, you should look at what Canada is doing to support international students, what they're doing to support immigration, and that should actually encourage you, because once you get in, Canada is not going to ask you to leave as an international student because of the pandemic, because something has happened. So there is a lot of support that's available. So advice is, if you're serious, take the plunge, take your first step, start moving ahead, start applying, and make your journey towards Canada.
Yeah, and just building on that, I mean, in March, April of 2020, who would have thought that we'd be here right now, right?
Absolutely.
Still on lockdown, et cetera, et cetera. So who knows what could happen? Who knows
Yep.
how long we might, you might be saying, oh, I'll wait till it's over. Oh, I'll wait
Yep.
till it's over. Next thing you know, 2 years go by, and you've now kind of pushed back that degree or that career move that much longer as well. So,
Absolutely. And because I think one worry, and again, not to scare anyone, but it's also the study gap thing. I mean, it's not a deal breaker for most institutions. I mean, it's just something that needs to be explained. But I think it's generally a good idea not to have a lot of study gap. So I think
right.
that's something to keep in mind as well.
Absolutely. Awesome. Junaid, thanks very much for coming on the show, for giving your wise words of advice. Again, if anybody has any questions, we'll stick around for another few minutes. Feel free to
Yep.
throw them in the chat. But Junaid, thanks very much for coming on the show.
Most welcome, a pleasure. A little bummed that I'm the only one in the Beards Club today, but but thank you.
Usually I'm with you, but
Yep.
what the Visto show has also done, and this was one of the reasons why I was happy to start it, is it gives me an excuse to actually shave, take a shower, put a coat on for once a week, and yeah. So great to have you on, and we'll
Pleasure.
wait a couple minutes now if anybody has any questions. We do actually have a few viewers who stuck around on YouTube, which we
Awesome.
really appreciate. Again, seeing some issues with that Facebook chat, but anyways. So yeah, guys, we'll give it another minute or two. If you have
Sure.
any questions, please throw them in the chat. Questions for Junaid, questions for myself. We'll give it a few minutes to see if any questions do come through. And yeah, the other thing I'll quickly mention, Junaid alluded to it, but Canada has not only made it better for international students to travel, but has put in some exemptions around if you're stuck outside Canada and you have to study online, or if you're in Canada and you can't study in person. You know what I mean? They're making all of these exemptions so that international students are still able to come here, finish their degree, get the post-grad work permit, get work experience, get PR. So it's a good time, especially when you compare it to some other countries, right? Like where the U.S., there was a bit of a scare for international students at one point, where I think Trump threatened that international students would have to leave if they weren't taking classes in person. I don't know if things will get that bad again, but it's definitely fair to say that Canada has your back, right? Especially
Absolutely.
compared to some other countries.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Looks like we have a quiet crowd today, which is totally fine. Some people just want to lurk and listen, so we got no questions. But Junaid, thanks again for coming on the show. For everybody
Most welcome.
who did tune in, maybe if you tuned in later, a recording of this will still stay on our YouTube channel, so make sure to check it out. Make sure to subscribe as well to the channel. I'll be going live every Friday, same time, bringing on different guests like Junaid, who are experts in different areas of immigration itself, international student help, job help, all that kind of stuff. So make sure to tune in. And of course, sign up for free at visto.ai to get access to our free portal. You'll get guides to the study permit, guides to PR, all that kind of stuff. We do actually have a question that just popped in from Tamir, who says, is general Ielts score valid? Tamir, I don't know if, actually, I'm just going to pass this to Junaid. General Ielts is good for express entry, so PR. Junaid, do they have to take academic Ielts if they're applying to colleges and universities?
Right, absolutely. So colleges and universities don't accept general IELTS. They'd want you to do academic IELTS.
Got it. So Tamir, you'll have to take academic if you haven't already. Can you also quickly mention too, Junaid, that I think schools have become a little bit more flexible with the language exams that they are accepting. Can you mention some of the other ones that they've been accepting more specifically, because of COVID?
Absolutely. I think the biggest one is Duolingo. I think historically it wasn't accepted, but since the lockdown and with IELTS offices closed across many countries, they started accepting Duolingo. It is still being accepted. I think for most institutions, they will continue to accept it until end of December, and my expectation is even early next year. So if somebody hasn't done their language test, Duolingo is an option. Acceptable scores, they vary, but anywhere from 110, 20, 125 is generally a good score. So I think that's a lot of flexibility that they have shown. And also seen with some institution where earlier they wouldn't accept anything under 6 for IELTS. That's still mostly true in almost 95% of cases. But some institutions now, to show more flexibility, have started accepting students who may not have 6 in all bands. So if you have less than 6 in one band, you may have a chance at an institution compared to earlier.
Awesome. Very helpful, Tamir. Hopefully you found that useful as well. Folks, I think that is going to be it for the show, unless another question pops up in the next few seconds here. Junaid, thank you again for coming on the show. To everybody who tuned in, thanks as well. We got one more. Tamir's coming
Awesome.
back. Is 3 to 4 years of study gap with proven work background matter for the study permit? So 3 to 4 year gap, proven work experience.
No,
Junaid?
it's not a problem. Study gap, I mean, even if you have 10 years of study gap, to be honest, as long as it can be explained, I mean, it could be a number of reasons, right? I mean, if you're not studying, you must be doing something else, right? You're either, there may be some personal reasons, maybe you're a homemaker, maybe you've taken a break from work, maybe you're working, running a business. As long, it just needs to be explained. It doesn't rule you out if there's a huge study gap. It just needs to be explained, and the institution needs to know what you were doing in those years. So 3 to 4 years wouldn't be an issue at all.
Awesome. Tamir says, okay, thanks a lot. Awesome. Glad we could be of some help, Tamir. And again, for anybody tuning in, if you want more help in terms of guides for the different types of permits, definitely check out the free Visto portal at visto.ai. The other thing I will quickly link to is if you want to work directly with Junaid to start getting serious about applying, finding the right colleges and universities, I will paste the link right now to Visto, our program Visto Study, and you can check that out and get started with that for free as well. So Junaid, thank you again for coming on the show. Really appreciate it.
A
All
pleasure.
right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you.
Hope everybody enjoyed. Have a great weekend, and we will see you on the next episode. Take care, everybody.
Awesome.